Are you ready to hear this? You had already written the story of your life. By the time you were 5, a kid who couldn't even tie their shoes was the reason for every bad relationship, every goal you tried to reach, and every fear that stopped you. That kid is still in charge of your life and making decisions for you based on what they learned on the playground. You think you're making smart choices, but really you're just following a plan made by a kindergartner who thought monsters lived under the bed and that their parents knew everything. Alfred Adler discovered a shocking truth about himself that led Freud to expel him from the inner circle of psychology. It will change everything you thought you knew about yourself. You might think that Sigmund Freud was the only person who studied psychology, but in the early 1900s in Vienna, a doctor named Alfred Adler was coming up with ideas that would change everything people thought they knew about people. Adler was born in the area around Vienna in 1870. As a member of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Society, he worked with Freud for the first time. But if you look at how they were connected, you'll see that Adler's ideas were very different from what most psychoanalysts thought. This caused a split in the field of psychology in 1911 that still affects the field today. Adler had a very different view of people than Freud did. Freud thought that people were driven by hidden sexual and aggressive urges. You are not just a battleground for different drives or a victim of wants that you have pushed down. Adler thought of you as a single purposeful person who makes your own life. He called this way of thinking about what makes people act and behave the way they do individual psychology. The term individual psychology may initially appear superfluous. Is psychology not inherently focused on individuals? Adler did choose this name on purpose. Individual comes from the Latin word individuum, which means one. You are not a bunch of fighting parts or feelings that don't get along. Every thought, feeling, and action you take is part of a bigger plan that will help you reach your life goals. Your memories, feelings, actions, and even your symptoms are all part of a plan for your life that is unique to you. This view of the whole is very different from the reductionist ideas of Adler's time. Some people were breaking the mind down into parts like the ID, ego, and superego, while others were breaking behavior down into simple patterns of stimulus and response. Adler, on the other hand, said that everyone should be thought of as a whole, creative person. You actively interpret your experiences, assign significance to events, and determine your actions according to your personal values and objectives. Adler's theory is based on the idea of teleology, which says that your goals move you forward instead of your past. Adler focused more on how your thoughts about the future affect what you do now than Freud did on how traumatic events from your childhood affect how you act as an adult. You live your life and work toward goals that give your life meaning and direction, as if some things were true. Psychology changes from being the study of illness to being a way to figure out what people can become when you look at it this way. Adler's approach emphasizes the significance of one's feelings over the actual state of affairs. Two people can go through the same things, but react very differently because of their own goals and points of view. You don't respond to facts, you respond to how you see them. This phenomenological approach acknowledges that one's perception of reality fundamentally influences behavior and decision-making. Adler also changed how people thought about what makes people tick. What drives you is not a desire to feel good or avoid pain, but a deep desire to go from a felt minus to a felt plus situation. You are always trying to improve things, get through hard times, and feel like you belong and are good at what you do. This effort is not indicative of a mental disorder. It is the fundamental impetus that sustains life. The social environment in which individuals exist is another significant aspect of individual psychology. Adler knew that you are a social being at your core, while Freud was more interested in bodily drives. Your relationships with other people shape who you are, and social situations can be hard for you. Your mental health depends on how well you can connect with other people and help society. People can't really understand you unless they look at the web of connections that make up your life. This social integration has an effect on how you make your own unique way of living. Your early experiences in family and society help you form core beliefs about yourself, other people, and the world. Adler called this set of beliefs your style of life. It's how you usually go after your goals and solve problems. You probably have a general idea of how you want to act by the time you're 5 or 6, but new experiences and insights can still change this pattern. Adler's exit from psychoanalysis significantly augmented the populace capable of comprehending psychology. He believed that psychological insights should be accessible to all individuals, not solely to medical professionals. You don't need to go to school to learn the basic rules that govern how people act. Adler spoke to teachers, parents, and big groups of people in general a lot. He didn't just talk about his ideas in school. He also did it in child guidance offices and in popular education. Individual psychology and psychoanalytic practice have very different effects on people. Adlerian therapy is not the same as lying on a couch and telling stories about your dreams and past. You and your therapist work together instead of talking on the phone. Instead of trying to find hidden information, the focus shifts to figuring out your goals, looking at your lifestyle, and finding the strength to deal with life's problems better. As you learn more about individual psychology, you can see how Adler's ideas were ahead of many other ideas that came after him in psychology. His emphasis on the individual as a whole foreshadowed humanistic psychology. His focus on meaning and goals had an impact on existential therapy. His research into cognitive patterns made cognitive behavioral techniques possible. His view of society influenced community psychology and systems theory. Adler is not merely a footnote in Freud's history. He is depicted as a revolutionary thinker whose concepts continue to influence contemporary understandings of human nature. Personality psychology is different from other theories because it looks at how people act in real life. Adler was interested in real-life problems that people have, like how to raise kids, do well at work, keep friends, and help others. His psychology doesn't deal with vague metapsychological ideas. It deals with real problems that people deal with every day. You can use Adlerian ideas right away to improve your relationships and get more done. You feel bad about yourself as soon as you are born. You need other people to keep you alive when you're a baby. People around you are taller than you, have skills you don't have, and control resources you need. Adler called this feeling of being small and helpless the inferiority feeling. This is not a mental illness. It is an intrinsic aspect of humanity that propels all development and achievement. These early feelings of not being good enough are not just because you can't do anything about it. When you have trouble understanding words and ideas that other people can easily understand, you quickly learn how smart you are. You start to feel socially inferior when you realize that you can't handle complicated social situations that adults do naturally. It makes you feel even less powerful when you have to rely on others for everything, like food, shelter, and other needs. In every part of your life, you learn something new about how limited you are compared to others. How strong and specific your feelings of inferiority are depends a lot on your situation. How you look is a big part of it. You probably felt even worse about yourself if you were smaller than normal, had trouble coordinating your movements, or had health problems. It's very important how your family works together. You might feel like you're not as good as your brothers if you're the youngest and they're older and smarter, or if you're the oldest and a new baby comes along. There are also cultural factors at play. Since society's ideas of beauty, intelligence, success, and worth set new standards that you will never be able to meet. Adler did know, though, that these feelings of not being good enough aren't always bad. They are the main thing that makes people move forward. You learn to walk because you see how other people move their bodies, and it looks better than crawling. It's frustrating not to be able to say what you need, so you learn words. You work on your skills, go to school, and aim for success because you know there is a gap between where you are and where you want to be. Adler called this process compensation. You naturally get over your weaknesses by working hard and finding new ways to do things. When you think you're not good at something, you naturally want to work on your strengths to make up for it. A child who has trouble in school might get really good at sports or the arts. The socially awkward person might get really good at computers. You don't just accept your limits. You try to find new ways to be successful that go beyond them. There are different types of compensation, and each one shows a different way to deal with feeling weak. Getting stronger in the area that is thought to be weak is what direct replacement means. For instance, a child who is weak might become an athlete, and a person who stutters might become a public speaker. For instance, a person who has trouble seeing might get better at remembering things and listening, which is a kind of indirect compensation. Overcompensation is more than just being good enough. It's about how bad the person feels about themselves in the first place. The concept of organ inferiority illustrates how physical limitations can influence an individual's growth and transformation. As a child, if you had any problems or weaknesses in your body, this was probably the main reason for your inferiority complex and the things you did to try to make up for them. A child who has trouble breathing might become very aware of how they breathe and either stop exercising or become completely obsessed with cardiovascular fitness. People who have trouble seeing might get better at music or analytical thinking. The way you feel about these physical events creates mental patterns that last a lifetime. Your emotional state of feeling less important is more important than the truth. If two kids have the same physical limits, they may respond very differently based on how they view their situation. Your family probably made you feel worse about your flaws if they thought they were shameful instead of easy to fix. The way you think about your experiences has a much bigger effect on your mental health than the events themselves. Your culture and society have a big impact on how you feel and show inferiority complexes. The values of a society determine which traits are considered less important and which compensations are acceptable. People feel worse about themselves when they have intellectual limits in cultures that value academics than when they have practical skills. Gender norms influence the available methods of compensation. For instance, men who feel physically inferior are often not allowed to work on their emotional intelligence, and women who feel intellectually inferior are not allowed to work on their math skills. When people feel like they're not good enough too often, they stop acting. This is called an inferiority complex. The complex doesn't push you to grow and do well. Instead, it makes you think that you are not good enough and can't do anything good. If you know you'll fail before you even start, you might not do any work at all. You could also develop a superiority complex, which Adler called another sign of unresolved weakness that makes you feel good about yourself, but hides deep-seated feelings of worthlessness. Knowing that a lot of people feel ashamed changes how you see yourself and others. That great CEO probably felt very helpless at some point, which made them work harder. The smart artist probably made up for things he thought he was missing in other areas. Your hobbies and accomplishments show the unique mix of strengths and weaknesses you have. When you realize this, you can see how, in a strange way, human weakness makes people stronger. Therapy has a huge impact. Adlerian methods don't try to get rid of feelings of being less than others. Instead, they help you understand them and use them in a good way. You think about which of your perceived flaws are still affecting how you act, which of your coping mechanisms are still working, and which of your habits are no longer helping you. The goal isn't to be better than others. It's to learn how to be brave enough to be imperfect while still trying to improve and make a difference. Adler said that the main thing that drives people is the need to be better than others. This is clear from how you go from feeling weak to wanting to get better. People often think of pride or dominance when they hear the word superiority, which can make this idea hard to understand. Adler, on the other hand, meant something else entirely. Wanting to be great is a normal human desire to improve, become an expert, and reach your full potential. You do this all the time. You go from feeling bad about something to feeling good about it, from being imperfect to being beautiful, and from not finishing something to finishing it. You can see this effort in every part of your life. When you learn a new skill, you go from being able to do it to being able to do it well. When you have a problem, you don't want just any solution. You want the best one. When you talk to other people, you want to be helpful, useful, and respected. This upward movement is what makes up all of psychic life. You're never happy with where you are. You're always looking for something better, higher, and more complete. The road you're on is very important. Adler said that there is a difference between wanting to be better than others for your own sake and wanting to be better for the good of society. To be personally great, you have to put yourself above others and show how valuable you are by competing and comparing yourself to them. You can never feel safe on this path because you'll never have enough power to feel safe. Another choice is to work hard to be the best you can be in ways that are good for you and your community. You want to be great, not to hurt other people, but to make the world a better place. The way you strive depends on what has happened to you in life. People's early successes and failures shape their ideas about what kinds of superiority are possible. If you got praise for doing well in school, you probably still try to set smart goals. If being good at sports got you noticed, then working out to look good is your favorite thing to do. These early habits tend to stay with you throughout your life, shaping the ways you usually look for improvement and approval. The goal you set for yourself is what drives your quest for excellence. This idea of being complete or perfect is what shapes your whole personality. You could see yourself as being completely liked, completely safe, completely able, or completely in charge. This goal is made up and can't be reached in real life, but it gives your work purpose and direction. Every decision you make either brings you closer to or farther away from the perfect state you want to be in. It shows in the way you think, feel, and act that is different from everyone else, which is how your desire to be better shows itself. Some people find happiness in being busy and successful, and they always want to do more. Some people try to get ahead by being loved, wanted, or admired, which they do by making friends. Some people try to be better by never taking the chance of failing or being turned down. Each pattern shows a different way to go from being bad to being good, or from being less than good to being better. Adler called the creative power of the individual the thing that makes you want to work hard. You are not just responding to things that happen or following patterns that have already been set. The decisions you make about how to try to be better shape who you are. You can get over your problems, see things in a new way, and come up with new ways to grow with this creative power. The decisions you make about your goals and how to reach them. Write your own story about your life. When people move around, it often shows that they are trying to think. Your posture, walk, and hand movements show how you usually act when you think you're better than others. People who walk with their shoulders back and their heads high are really trying to get better. If you are slumped over, it could mean that you are giving up or are afraid of aiming too high. Your sleeping position can show how you feel about the hard things in life. For example, if you sleep curled up defensively or stretched out confidently, it can show how you feel about them. People try to be better than others at work all the time. You could try to be the best in your field by becoming a technical expert. You could also get people to work together toward a common goal by organizing them and giving them a reason to do so. Some people think of new ideas and answers all the time to try to get better. Others find it by being honest and dependable. Each method has its own way of finding value and meaning. Your relationships reveal whether your objectives are altruistic or self-serving. When you do things that are good for society, being better than others makes them better, not worse. People can use what you know to solve everyday problems. Because of how you lead them, people can reach their goals with your help. Your talent makes the world a better place. But if you just want to be better than everyone else, relationships become games where someone has to lose for you to win. You might want to subscribe to this channel if you like these ideas about how people work hard and want to learn more psychological insights that can change how you see yourself and others. New content that goes deep into human nature is added all the time. This helps you learn more about yourself and make better choices in life. Adler called the healthy desire to improve courage, which means being willing to face life's challenges, even if you don't do it perfectly. You know what you need to work on and are still trying to get better. You know that no one is perfect, but you still value growth. You know that everyone else wants to be the best, so you know that it's better to work together than to fight. This grown-up way of trying leads to real growth instead of acting out of fear. Recognizing your desire for improvement elucidates numerous perplexing aspects of human behavior. Putting things off is often a sign that you are afraid your work won't be good enough. Being a perfectionist means that you are trying so hard to be perfect that you feel like you have failed if you don't reach that goal. When the gap between what is happening now and what you want to happen seems impossible to close, depression can be a sign that you have given up. Knowing about these trends can help you change your goals in a healthier way. Adler called it Gemeinschaftsgefühl, which means social interest or community feeling. This is very important for your mental health and happiness in life. This idea means that you have the natural ability to connect with other people, make a difference in the world, and feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. Everyone has the potential to be interested in other people, but they need to work on it and have good social experiences throughout their lives. Being friendly or enjoying other people's company is only a small part of social interest. To do this, you need to be able to see, hear, and feel what someone else is going through. You really care about other people's health and know that your own health is linked to the health of your community. Adlerian theory says that a person has reached psychological growth when they stop being self-centered and start to see themselves as part of a larger social group. Your oldest relationships are where you start to care about other people. Most of the time, you learn how to help others, work together, and care for them in your family. When caregivers meet your needs while also sticking to their own interests and limits, you learn that relationships aren't about taking advantage of each other. You learn that helping others makes you happier, not less happy. These early lessons set the tone for all the social interactions that came after. It is especially important to be interested in other people if your mother or main provider is involved. Through the many interactions we have with her every day, she teaches us how to balance our own needs with those of others. If she loved and cared about you and other people, she was socially healthy. It was hard for you to talk to other people right away if she was either too protective, putting you ahead of other relationships, or too careless, not showing that she cared. It's very important for your growth to make friends outside of your family. You need to learn how to bring the love and cooperation you have with your family to bigger groups, like your extended family, your neighborhood, your school, your job, your country, and eventually all people. People who are really interested in people are also interested in animals, plants, and even the universe. This growing circle of worry shows that people are getting better at taking care of their health and their minds. The way you act and think in your daily life shows how much you care about other people. When you care about more than just your own growth at work, it shows you also help your coworkers and work toward the company's goals. When you think about what your partner wants, as well as what you want, and try to help both of you instead of just yourself, it shows in your relationships. It shows up in community life, through volunteering, getting involved in politics, and just helping a neighbor. Adler called the root of all psychological disturbance a lack of social desire. When you don't feel close to other people, you tend to think about things in a selfish way. This makes you fail and makes you angry. You might do well for a while by competing and taking advantage of others, but if you don't have real connections and contributions, your success will feel hollow. People who are nervous, criminals, or suicidal all have a basic lack of social interest that makes it hard for them to deal with life's problems in a healthy way. How interested you are in other people affects how well you can solve problems. When people with a lot of social interest have problems, they naturally look for solutions that work for everyone. You want situations where everyone wins, instead of situations where one person wins and the other loses. This way of doing things not only works better in the real world, but it also strengthens the social ties that help people get through tough times. From a self-centered perspective, challenges that appear insurmountable can frequently be resolved through collaboration. The connection between being interested in other people and having mental health problems is the same for all mental illnesses. If you're depressed, you might only care about your own pain. This stops you from getting better by helping others and making connections. If you're anxious, it could mean you're too focused on yourself and not spending enough time with other people. When someone tries to meet real needs in ways that don't help other people, they are addicted. In all of these cases, being more social is a way to get better health. Cultural factors have a big effect on how social interest develops and shows itself. Societies that put a lot of value on competition and individual success may hurt social interest without meaning to. On the other hand, societies that value unity among all members may help it grow. Adler did notice, though, that people who are very interested in other people tend to be healthier, better, and more successful in the long run. Regardless of their culture, the words may be different, but the main idea is always the same. One of the best ways to show that you care about other people is to get to know them at work. Making things, providing services, or fixing problems are all examples of useful work that directly makes other people's lives better. When you see your job as making a difference, instead of just getting something for yourself, you will be much happier at work. People tend to be unhappy with work that isn't socially useful, even if it pays well. This is because it takes advantage of others or hurts them. Interest in social issues has a big impact on education. People who go to schools that promote both individual success and teamwork are better off mentally. When you help your classmates understand hard ideas, work on projects together, and celebrate group successes, you learn skills that will help you do well in life. If schools only care about competition and grades, they might make students who do well in school but have trouble getting along with others and getting involved in their community. Your social interests also affect how you feel about close relationships. You don't look for a partner to meet your needs or make up for your flaws when you become socially interested. Instead, you look for a real partner. You don't ask, "What can this person do for me?" when you're with them. Instead, you ask, "What can we make together?" Partnerships become more stable and rewarding when people give instead of take and move from need to contribution. Adler's research shows that your role in the family has a big impact on how your personality grows. The order in which each child is born creates a unique psychological situation that affects how they see themselves, how they get along with others, and how they deal with life's problems. Even though these trends aren't set in stone, many things can change the effects of birth order. Understanding how they usually work can help you understand how personalities are formed and how people interact with each other throughout your life. Your parents only paid attention to you when you were the first child they had. Your parents may have given you their full attention, resources, and demands for a long time, like months or years. People who are in this privileged position tend to do certain things. You mostly learned how to talk to adults, which helped you get better at speaking and thinking about life in a more grown-up way. Your parents put all of their hopes and fears into you, which made you who you are today by giving you chances and putting you under stress. The first child has a whole new life when the second child is born. Because you dethroned quickly, you no longer had all of your parents' attention. The way your parents handled this change had a big impact on how you reacted. You probably learned how to be a leader and be watchful if they helped you get used to your new job. You may have developed competitive, controlling, or anxious habits that you still use in your adult relationships if the change happened quickly or wasn't handled well. Firstborns usually have their own strengths and weaknesses. You are usually responsible, goal-oriented, and respectful of those in charge. You learned from your parents when you were young that you should hold yourself and others to high standards. It's easy for you to become a leader when you think about how you used to be in charge of your younger siblings, but you might also have trouble wanting to be great, giving up control, and worrying about losing your job. When a brother came along, the fear of being pushed aside could turn into a sense of competition and one's own status as an adult. When the second child comes, things are very different in the family. You never had your parents' full attention from the time you were born. you always shared the family stage. Your older brother or sister was both a role model and a rival. Their success helped you grow faster. It usually makes you competitive to be in this situation because you're always trying to catch up with, beat, or stand out from the sibling who came before you. The growth of a second child is often very different from that of the first. You might have gotten into sports or the arts if your older brother did well in school. If they had been responsible and followed the rules, you might have grown up to be an artist or a rebel. This difference helps you find your own place in the family system, which is a process that can change. You quickly learned that trying to be more important than your older sibling didn't work, so you looked for other ways to do it. When second children are competitive, different things can happen. You might get very ambitious and always try to get ahead of your second job. You could be better at working with others and be more cooperative than the firstborn when it comes to leading. Some second children feel bad about themselves when they have to keep comparing themselves to others. They give up or choose very different paths in life to avoid competition. Middle children have a hard time getting attention and figuring out who they are. You never got to enjoy the benefits of being the firstborn or the safety of being the youngest because you were stuck between brothers. In this case, you will probably either be very good at talking things over with family members or feel like you're being ignored and start doing things to get their attention. Middle children often help keep the peace in the family by learning how to get along with others and see things from other people's points of view. The youngest child is in the middle, which is strange. It was hard to be the smallest and least skilled person in a family of bigger and smarter people, even though your younger brother never dethroned you. Parents often want to keep their youngest kids safe, which can either make them feel like they can get help or make them dependent on others for a long time. Older brothers may act like more than one parent, helping and maybe even controlling their younger brothers. Younger kids often develop habits like trying to catch up to older kids or coming up with creative ways to keep their special place. You might get really motivated and want to do better than everyone else. You could also keep being fun and friendly, which will get you care and attention without putting you in direct competition. People sometimes don't take the baby of the family seriously when they are an adult because they think they are still young and inexperienced. Only kids can have a special family dynamic that comes from being the oldest and protecting the youngest. You grew up in an adult-oriented environment because you didn't have to compete with your siblings. This can make you smart and mature, but if you don't have any friends in the family, it can be hard to get along with people who are the same level as you. Kids usually do well in activities where an adult is in charge, but they might have trouble when they are with other kids without any rules. The distance between siblings has a big impact on how birth order affects them. Kids who are more than 5 years apart in age often act more like kids their own age. If your brothers were much older than you, they might have been more like parents than rivals. Big gaps can break families into smaller groups. You could be the youngest of the older kids or the oldest of the younger kids, which would give you a lot of different jobs at once. Birth order patterns are more complicated because they depend on gender. If you are the only girl among boys, or the first boy after a lot of girls, your birth order is different from what is normal. In these situations, your parents may have different expectations and roles in the family. This can either put too much pressure on you or give you special rights that change who you are. The size of the family also has an effect on birth order. Families with a lot of kids usually have smaller groups of kids because parents have to pay attention to so many things. Sibling relationships become the most important thing. If you grew up in a big family, how you get along with peers who are right next to you might be more important than where you are in the birth order. In large households, older children frequently assume parental responsibilities, acquiring early lessons in responsibility and caregiving. Culture is the way you think, feel, and act that makes you who you are. Adler used the German word Lebensstil to talk about this way of living that you learn as a child and that stays with you for the rest of your life. You had strong ideas about yourself, other people, and the world by the time you were 5 or 6. These ideas still shape your daily life. You made these early choices when you were young and logical that will help you reach your goals and solve your problems. The first things that happened to you and how you thought about them shape how you feel about things now. When you were a kid, you were in a lot of situations where you had to think about what to do and how to act. You wanted to know more about how your parents met your needs, whether your brothers fought or worked with you, and what behaviors got you praised or scolded. You reached conclusions that made sense to you in your small world because you didn't grow much in terms of your mind or your point of view. These conclusions became strong beliefs that now mostly work without you knowing it. There are many important parts to your lifestyle that all work together to make it whole. Your self-concept is the first thing that tells you how you feel about your skills, worth, and place in the world. This includes how you see your strengths and weaknesses, the jobs you think you can do well in, and what you want to achieve. Second, your outlook is based on what you think about how life works, whether you can trust other people, whether hard work pays off, and whether the universe is mostly good or bad. Third, your morals decide what you think is right and wrong, fair and unfair, useful and useless. These parts work together to make your own path through life. If you think you have to be perfect to be valuable, you probably live a life where you are always trying to do better, are very sensitive to criticism, and find it hard to ask for help. If you learned early on that you can't trust other people, you probably live a life of mental distance, independence, and trouble making close connections with other people. If you think life is risky and unpredictable, you might focus on being in charge, being ready, and not taking chances. Your private logic is how you think about things, explain what you do, and make sense of what happens to you. Most people don't agree with your private reasoning, but it makes sense to you. For example, your private thoughts might tell you that being vulnerable always means being taken advantage of, even though it's common sense that being vulnerable in the right way makes relationships stronger. It's possible that your mind tells you that coming in second is the same as failing, but in reality, coming in second is a big deal. The goals you set show who you are and help you become who you want to be. You base all of your actions and choices on the end goal that you have created in your mind, which is the imagined state of completion or perfection that you are working toward. If you care about being liked and accepted, your made-up ultimate goal might be to be so great that everyone loves you no matter what. If you want to be in charge of everything in real life, your made-up end goal might be to be in charge of everything around you. Most of the time, you don't even know you have these goals, but they affect the choices you make every day. There are consistent patterns in different parts of your life that show how you live. At work, you might always act like the expert, the helper, the rebel, or the perfectionist, depending on what you believe. In relationships, you might be the rescuer, the victim, the controller, or the entertainer over and over again. You might think these patterns are normal and can't be helped, but other people might see that they happen a lot and sometimes work against you. You make similar patterns in different places because the way you live changes how you see and respond to things. When you think about your childhood, it's easy to see how your lifestyle helped you adapt. If you grew up in a home that was always changing, living a controlled life made you feel safe and stable. If you were getting harsh feedback, becoming a perfectionist might help you avoid more criticism. If someone has left you, learning to depend on yourself will keep you from being let down again. Your way of life is how you dealt with problems when you were younger, but it might not work for you now that you're an adult. Your posture, the way you walk, and even health problems can all show how you live your life. People who think they're better than others often stand up straight and move in a commanding way. If someone lives their life to avoid conflict, they might slouch and move slowly. Sometimes, how someone lives their life can cause chronic illnesses. For instance, a person who can't show their anger might get stomach problems, and a person who always takes on other people's problems might get back problems. Your body really shows how you live your life. Keeping the same way of life over time and in different situations gives you both safety and limits. You feel like the same person at different times in your life because your lifestyle gives you a sense of continuity. But being consistent can also keep you stuck in bad habits that you don't want to break. The way you lived as a kid might not be good for your relationships as an adult. Things you used to believe that kept you safe may now be holding you back from growing. Understanding this dynamic lets you change how you live on purpose. You can learn a lot about how you live now by looking back at your oldest memories. These memories are examples of things that happen in your life that show how you usually live. You probably live your life with themes of independence. If your first memory is of getting lost and finding your way home on your own. If you remember acting for adults who cheered, you know that wanting to be noticed probably affects a lot of your decisions. These memories are like metaphors for how you handle and live your life. When you look at problems that keep happening, it's easy to see how they are related to life problems. If you keep having the same problems with different jobs or relationships, it could be because of how you live your life. Someone whose way of life depends on being different might accidentally cause problems that need brave solutions. You might keep getting into situations where other people have to help you. If you don't own up to what you do, people can make changes when they know these links. Your private logic is a way of thinking that helps you make decisions and understand things. It often goes against what most people think is common sense. You develop this unique way of thinking as a child when you were trying to make sense of your experiences with little knowledge and a growing brain. The conclusions you reached may have been logical for a child in your circumstances, but they evolved into convictions that influence your adult behavior in ways that may astonish both you and others. The distinction between private reasoning and common sense elucidates numerous actions that appear illogical. Most people in your culture agree on what common sense is about how life works. Working together gets better results than always competing, or learning from mistakes helps you grow, are two examples. But your private thoughts might tell you that any cooperation makes me vulnerable to being taken advantage of, or admitting any mistake shows I'm not worth anything, even if they go against what you can see. You believe these deep-seated beliefs are true. You came to your own conclusions by only paying attention to certain things and misinterpreting what was said. When I was a kid, some things stuck with me more than others, and some I barely remembered. You might have thought that being generous leads to lack if you lost something or were let down in the past because you shared. This conclusion, which you came to as a child with simple thinking, is now a big part of how you think. Then, you only pay attention to things that support your point of view and ignore things that go against it. This strengthens your conviction over time. Private logic stays around even when bad things happen because it protects you. Your unique way of thinking helped you deal with the problems you had when you were younger. If you had a parent who was unstable when you were a kid, telling yourself, "I must never fully relax," helped you stay alert to danger. If you kept losing hope, you thought that hoping for good things only leads to pain would keep you from getting hurt more. These logical results were helpful, which makes it hard to let go of them, even when things change. There are many examples of private reasoning in everyday life, but you probably don't notice how you think and reason differently. Your inner voice might say, "If I'm not the best, I'm nothing," which could make you too perfect or make you avoid problems at all costs. You might think, "People only care about me when I'm sick or having a hard time," which makes you unconsciously cause problems to get attention. If you think that conflict always escalates to abandonment, you might not argue with others until your relationships explode from the stress of holding a grudge. There are many examples of private logic that don't make sense at work. It stands to reason that asking for help will help you get better results and strengthen your team's bonds. But your mind might tell you that asking for help means you're not good at what you're doing, and that people will turn you down. Your own mind might tell you that any criticism is proof that you are not good enough, even though it makes sense that constructive feedback can help people do better. These disagreements about reasoning make people stressed and stop them from growing as professionals. How your relationships work is largely based on how you think. Common sense says that being open and honest is a part of being close to someone, but your own mind may think that being open and honest means being hurt. Interdependence is a good thing in relationships. But your own logic might tell you that any kind of dependence means being abandoned or controlled. You might want to be close to people, but your own logic might be working against you to keep you safe. The strong feelings that come with internal logic show that it is there. When someone questions what you think is obviously true, the anger, anxiety, or defensiveness that follows often shows private rather than common sense. If you feel a lot of shame when you think of mistakes as chances to learn, it's likely that you think it's terrible to be imperfect. When you have strong feelings about other people's points of view, you're more likely to be supporting your own logic than well-thought-out conclusions. Cultural factors influence the development of private reasoning and the definition of common sense. Being raised in a highly competitive environment may lead an individual to equate worth with achievement, despite the fact that common sense suggests alternative perspectives on human value. A culture that values individual success may lead people to think that group performance is less important, even when there is proof that the group did well. Your private logic is a mix of how people usually act and how society affects them. It takes courage and careful attention to look at your own inner logic as a form of therapy. People don't usually change when you tell them their reasoning is wrong, because your own reasoning feels like truth, not opinion. Instead, you grow by taking your time to look at the evidence for and against your beliefs, learning about where they came from, and thinking about what other meanings they could have. Oh, when you were 5 years old, some ideas may have helped you, but now that you're 35, they may be holding you back. This could help you come to new conclusions. There is a strong link between private reasoning and lifestyle that goes both ways. Your private logic tells you why you live the way you do, and your lifestyle is how you put your private logic into action. If you live a life where you are always trying to get things done, your own mind will tell you why this is important and right. Your private thoughts will tell you why avoiding commitment keeps you safe from harm that is sure to happen if you live your life that way. Knowing one part helps you understand the other. Dreams often show how we think and feel by using symbols. If you keep dreaming that you're not ready for a test, it could be because you think it's bad to be imperfect. If you dream that someone is chasing you, it could mean that you think other people will become violent. It's still hard to figure out what dreams mean, but the way you dream often shows how you think, which is another way to figure out how you think. People think that their beliefs are important for life, so private logic changes slowly. You can't just use common sense and change your deeply held beliefs right away. Instead, change happens when we have the same experiences over and over again that gently challenge what we already know and make it safe to try new things. Every time you put yourself at risk of being taken advantage of and instead feel accepted, your secret thoughts about relationships change a little. As we grow up, the things we thought we knew as kids change. Adler says that your mental health and general happiness depend on how well you can do 3 important things in life. Everyone has to deal with these things: work and career, relationships with other people, and love and closeness. You can't choose not to do these things without having big effects on your mind. The way you handle these issues says a lot about your lifestyle, your social interests, and your mental health. There is a lot more to work and jobs than just making money or getting ahead in your career. This job is mostly about how you help society and how you fit into the division of labor that keeps society running. From the very beginning, people had to work together to stay alive. You come from a place where you need to find work that is useful to you and your community. No matter how much money you have, putting off this job by being unemployed for a long time, doing work that doesn't matter, or taking advantage of others will make you feel bad. The way you do your job shows how you feel about working with others, getting things done, and the value of society. If you only see work as a way to get something for yourself, you miss out on the bigger happiness that comes from making a difference. If you think of work as a way to show that you're better than others, you'll make it a place where people compete with each other, which will hurt both your happiness and your work. The best way to work together with others To make something useful that you couldn't do alone is to cooperate socially. It doesn't matter what kind of work you do as much as how you feel about helping others and working with them. No matter what you do, build houses, teach kids, grow food, or make art, the most important question is whether your work is useful to more than just you. You might be very happy with simple work that you know is good for society, but wanting power for its own sake can make you feel empty. The most important thing is to see your job as an important part of the bigger project that everyone is working on together. The social task checks how well you can get along with people who aren't very close to you. This includes your relationships with other people, how well you treat them as equals who deserve respect and care, and your friendships and ties to your community. Making a lot of shallow friends or acquaintances won't help you solve this problem. You should really care about other people's well-being and be able to build relationships based on respect for each other instead of neediness or abuse. More than anything else in your life, your relationships with other people show how much you care about them. When you make friends, do you look for people who can help you, or do you want to make both of you better? Can you stay in touch with people who aren't meeting your needs right now? Do you help your community by volunteering, getting involved in politics, or just being a good neighbor? You can tell if you finished the social job or are still stuck in self-centered patterns by what you do. A lot of the time, the problems with social tasks come from things that happened to the person when they were a child that made them afraid or distrustful of other people. It takes courage to make healthy social connections. If you learned as a kid that people are dangerous, unreliable, or out to get you, you might be let down. But if you avoid social activities by staying alone or only keeping shallow connections, you will always have mental health problems. People are naturally social, and you can't be mentally healthy if you don't have strong ties to your community. Love and intimacy may be the most difficult tasks because they necessitate the establishment of a committed relationship with another individual that facilitates the achievement of personal objectives and ensures the continuation of the species. You need to care about other people's well-being as much as your own in all areas of life for this task to be the most social. You and your partner need to talk about your differences, share resources, set goals together, and stay close to each other both emotionally and physically while still letting each other grow as people. Many people find it hard to be mentally mature enough to do the love job well. If you only want a partner to meet your own needs, like security, status, or to make up for things you think you're missing, the relationship is probably not going to work out for either person. If you think you have to conquer or achieve love to feel better about yourself, you don't understand what a real relationship is all about. Both people in a close relationship need to be mentally healthy and willing to work together to reach common goals and help each other grow. You can see how all three of these jobs are connected when you think about how problems in one area affect the others. When there are problems in close relationships, they often show up at work and in social situations too. Stress affects both friendships and personal relationships when things go wrong at work. It's harder to work together and have close ties when you're alone. These tasks are all connected and show how you live your life as a whole. You can't do them separately. The way you do all three jobs depends on how you live your life. If you live a life that values success and being better than others, you might be great at your job but have trouble getting along with others. If you want to be loved and accepted all the time, you might put a lot of work into your relationships and not be independent enough to do good work. You might not give your full attention to any job if you don't take responsibility in your daily life. This can lead to problems in all areas of your life. All three of these jobs in life require you to have the courage to be imperfect. People can't do their jobs, connect with each other in real ways, or have close relationships because perfectionism sets goals that are too high. You can handle life's problems better if you accept that you will make mistakes, fail, and need to keep getting better in all areas. You don't get this courage by thinking you're perfect. You get it by believing you can learn and help even though you have flaws. The three jobs in life look different in different cultures, but they are all the same at their core. People in different countries have different ways of working, getting married, and having relationships, but everyone has to find a way to deal with these basic issues. Your culture affects the options you have and the way people expect you to behave. but it doesn't change the fact that you still need to work, make friends, and build close relationships. Knowing both universal needs and regional differences can help you do these things more carefully. There is a significant difference between the therapeutic approach that Adler created and the conventional psychoanalysis, both in terms of theory and practice. While Adlerian therapy may involve the exploration of unconscious desires or the unearthing of repressed memories, its primary focus is on gaining a knowledge of your lifestyle, analyzing your objectives, and cultivating the confidence to face the problems that life presents in a more efficient manner. The role of the therapist is not comparable to that of an impartial expert who examines your mental state. Rather, they serve as a collaborative partner who assists you in recognizing patterns and exploring new possibilities. Through the use of this democratic and educational approach, psychological insight is transformed from being mysterious and pathological into being accessible and practical. An essential component of the Adlerian therapeutic approach is the provision of encouragement. Adler noted that the majority of psychological issues originate from discouragement, which may be defined as the loss of confidence in one's ability to deal with the challenges that life presents by the application of helpful ways. When you are feeling discouraged, you may resort to activities that momentarily protect your self-esteem, but eventually inhibit growth through the use of shielding behaviors. It is possible that you will avoid difficulties in order to prevent failure, develop symptoms that excuse poor performance, or create distance in relationships in order to escape the possibility of being rejected. In order to complete the therapeutic work, you will need to rekindle your bravery to face life in a constructive but imperfect manner, not to be confused with praise or reassurance. The process of encouragement is distinct. For the purpose of fostering genuine confidence, empty reassurances such as everything will be fine or praise for modest efforts are ineffective. Instead, encouraging entails assisting you in recognizing the qualities that you already possess, recasting perceived failures as opportunities for learning, and cultivating faith in your capacity to make a meaningful contribution despite the defects that you have. Your therapist will highlight instances in which you have shown courage, will bring to your attention progress that you might otherwise overlook, and will continue to have trust in your capacity for change, even when you are unable to see it for yourself. One of the first things that your therapist will do is develop a relationship based on equality and mutual respect. Adlerian therapy acknowledges that you are the expert on your own life, in contrast to other therapeutic systems that place more emphasis on the analyst's expertise and the illness of the patient. In the same way that you bring in-depth knowledge of your experiences and objectives, the therapist brings training in spotting patterns and understanding human behavior. You come together to form a team that works together to investigate your way of life and learn about the various ways in which it could be altered. In the beginning stages of therapy, a variety of methods are utilized to conduct an assessment of the patient's lifestyle. It is possible that your therapist will investigate your family constellation, looking at how factors such as birth order and the dynamics of your family shaped your development. Recollections from your younger years are given significant attention, not as factual history, but rather as forecasts that indicate your fundamental attitude to managing life. The inquiry, "What would be different if you didn't have this problem?" is helpful in determining the function that your symptoms serve the body to do. Patterns and meanings continue to be the primary emphasis throughout this investigation, rather than the causes and pathology that are being investigated. One of the most important therapeutic insights is to obtain an understanding of the function of symptoms. Adlerian therapy acknowledges that symptoms serve roles within your lifestyle, as opposed to considering psychological disorders as pointless pain or biological dysfunction. From a biological perspective, there is a possibility that depression can shield against the dangers of striving and failure. Anxiety may help one to keep a safe distance from potentially dangerous intimacy. There is a possibility that physical complaints could serve as acceptable justifications for avoiding tasks. When these purposes are acknowledged without passing judgment, It creates room for the development of more productive solutions to satisfy the underlying needs. Several dysfunctional patterns can be corrected through the therapeutic interaction itself, which provides a corrective experience. The therapist's inability to engage in competitive dynamics presents a challenge to the pattern that you have established, which is that your lifestyle includes maintaining dominance through intellectual prowess. It is possible that the therapist's respectful expectation of your capabilities will interrupt the method that you generally use to elicit caretaking through feelings of helplessness. When you have the opportunity to experience a relationship that is founded on equality and mutual respect, you start to become aware of the various possibilities for diverse interpersonal dynamics. According to Adlerian therapy, the interpretation of dreams places more of an emphasis on the dreamer's creative process than on universal symbols. In a metaphorical sense, your dreams are a representation of your lifestyle. They are a rehearsal of how you will respond to the problems that life presents and a preparation of your emotional disposition for impending events. It's possible that your lifestyle, which places a strong premium on achievement and dread of being judged, is reflected in a dream in which you miss an important exam. Flying in your dreams may be a metaphor for your aspiration to surpass the restrictions you are now facing. The therapist will assist you in investigating the ways in which the themes of your dreams are connected to the patterns of your waking life. The strategy of acting as if is a powerful instrument that can be utilized for the transformation of one's lifestyle. Try out new actions, despite the fact that your feelings have not altered. This is in contrast to the traditional approach of waiting to feel different before doing differently. You might act as if you are someone who enjoys meeting new people. If your way of life involves avoiding social settings, while you are actually the opposite of that, there is no pretension involved here. Rather, this is deliberate exploration with different patterns. In many cases, feelings and self-concept progressively match with new behaviors, which results in actual personality development. Combining the treatment of specific symptoms with the cultivation of social interest is an essential component of therapeutic progress. When you shift your attention away from your own pain and toward making a positive contribution to the well-being of others, you may find that your psychiatric symptoms gradually disappear on their own. It's possible that the therapist will encourage you to participate in volunteer work, provide suggestions about how you can help your friends, or investigate how your job could better serve societal reasons. By shifting from a focus on oneself to a connection with the community, one might achieve long-term mental health rather than merely experiencing respite from symptoms. You are equipped with an insight that goes beyond the scope of individual sessions thanks to the educational component of Adlerian therapeutic treatment. Instead of teaching you to become dependent on therapy interpretation, the approach trains you to notice your own patterns and to make choices that are cognizant of your experiences. You acquire the ability to recognize instances in which private logic is in conflict with common sense, to recognize behaviors that are protective of others as they occur, and to keep in mind the availability of courageous alternatives. As a result of this instructional component, therapy is not only palliative, rather, it is profoundly transforming treatment. In the context of treatment, resistance is reframed as a behavior that serves protective purposes and is intended to safeguard. In the event that you miss sessions, disagree with interpretations, or respond with yes, but to every proposal, the therapist will investigate the reasons behind these actions. The therapeutic approach involves identifying the reason of resistance and conducting a gentle investigation into whether or not such protection is still required. This is done rather than directly confronting resistance. When compared to direct challenge, this polite exploration is frequently more effective at dissolving resistance. Adlerian therapy is characterized by its teaching and encouraging attitude, which is reflected in its time-limited nature. On the other hand, Adlerian therapy is designed to deliver insights and skills that can be utilized independently, in contrast to other therapeutic approaches that assume years of analysis. At the same time as there are circumstances that call for extended support, the objective is to assist you in becoming your own therapist rather than to create a dependency that will last for a long time. By taking this approach, your capabilities are respected and actual autonomy is encouraged rather than a condition of continual patientiness, an imagined state of completion, perfection, or security. that directs all of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, is what Adler referred to the imaginary final objective. This is the focal point around which your entire personality organization revolves. There is a significant amount of unconsciousness surrounding this objective, yet it functions as the magnetic north toward which your psychic compass is continually pointing. The fictional final goal is an ideal that is impossible to accomplish, yet it nonetheless gives your life journey direction and meaning. This is in contrast to concrete goals, which you might be able to achieve and even transcend. Acquiring a thorough comprehension of the phrase fictional is essential. Rather than referring to something that was objectively attainable, Adler meant that it was manufactured, imagined, and subjectively meaningful. He did not mean that it was untrue or delusional. It's possible that your fictitious ultimate objective is to be completely adored, completely secure, completely competent, or completely in charge of everything. Although you may be aware, from a purely intellectual standpoint, that these states are unattainable. From an emotional and behavioral standpoint, you may be directing your life as if obtaining them were not only feasible, but also essential. This as if nature is characteristic of a significant portion of the working psychology of humans. During the early years of your childhood, you are attempting to compensate for emotions of inferiority and powerlessness, which leads to the construction of your fictional ultimate objective. As you are confronted with the reality that you are a child in a world dominated by grown-ups, you fantasize about a future condition in which these excruciating sentiments are no longer present. If your early experiences highlighted your physical frailty, then your fictional ultimate objective can incorporate having strength that is unencumbered by vulnerability. In the event that you felt inferior or sluggish in comparison to your siblings, your objective might be to achieve academic superiority. In the process of crystallizing into organizing principles for your entire lifestyle, these compensating visions materialize. Your imaginary ultimate objective is accomplished through a process that Adler referred to as teleological pull, rather than cause and effect. Rather of being influenced by the events of the past, you find yourself drawn toward the future that you have anticipated. Every choice you make is given significance based on whether or not it brings you closer to or further away from the fictional final objective you have set for yourself. It is not because of what has happened to you that you behave. Rather, it is because of where you imagine yourself heading in the future. This teleological perspective is a revolutionary viewpoint that changes our understanding of human conduct. In situations where seemingly unreasonable acts are investigated, the force of fictional finalism becomes readily apparent. Why do you continue to strive for perfection despite the apparent implications it has? Mostly due to the fact that your fictitious ultimate objective requires perfection. Due to the fact that you are lonely, why do you avoid having close relationships? As a result of the fact that your objective necessitates the invulnerability that intimacy poses. Why do you put stress on yourself by assisting other people while you neglect to take care of yourself? Mainly due to the fact that your objective must involve becoming indispensable. A comprehension of the fictitious ultimate objective sheds light on actions that under other circumstances appear to be counterproductive. There are a variety of fictional end goals that correspond to the various personality types. Those who are pursuing power fantasize about being in a position where they have complete control over everything that happens. When someone is looking for recognition, they picture receiving attention and respect from everyone. Those who place a high priority on safety envision completely predictable outcomes and complete immunity from any danger. Individuals who are socially oriented envision a world in which there is perfect harmony and connection with all individuals. Every fictitious ultimate objective generates a unique pattern of striving, complete with a set of strengths and vulnerabilities that are characteristic of the goal. Your fictitious ultimate objective has the same impact on perception as it does on conduct. You are able to recognize events that are related to your objective while ignoring information that is not pertinent. If you want to achieve your aim of being exceptionally skilled, you will pay close attention to any information that demonstrates your uniqueness while reducing the similarities you share with other people. In the event that your objective requires universal acceptance, you will develop a heightened sensitivity to any indication of rejection, while simultaneously rejecting unambiguous evidence of acceptance. Your feeling that obtaining your imaginary final objective is not only attainable, but also necessary, is strengthened by the selective focus. It is important to give special regard to the relationship that exists between fictional final achievements and values. Frequently, the characteristics of your fictitious ultimate objective that are turned into moral standards are reflected in your most profound values. Assuming that your objective is to achieve absolute justice, you most likely place a high priority on fairness. Liberty becomes a fundamental principle when the objective you have in mind is to be liberated from any constraints. This relationship helps explain why value conflicts feel so scary. They challenge not only abstract concepts, but also your essential life orientation. Understanding this connection helps explain why value conflicts feel so threatening. The particular substance of fictional end goals is shaped by cultural factors, although the underlying dynamic remains the same throughout all cultures. It is more likely that a person will have imaginary final goals that involve success and recognition if they were raised in a culture that places a strong emphasis on achieving. The pursuit of goals that are oriented on harmony and belonging may be fostered in collectivist cultures. In the framework of religion, one can develop goals that involve attaining spiritual perfection or receiving divine approval. Nevertheless, regardless of the cultural content, every individual establishes some sort of structuring vision of a perfect future world. The therapeutic consequences of having a comprehension of fictional finalism are extremely significant. The process of growth requires identifying the fictional nature of your end objective and regulating its effect. This is preferable to the alternative of striving to erase your fictional final aim, which is an impossible undertaking because it organizes your entire personality. In this way, you learn to pursue your ideas while simultaneously realizing that they are ultimately unattainable. Despite letting go of perfectionism, you are able to keep direction. In addition to finding fulfillment in the journey itself, you place a high importance on making progress toward your goals. Through the accumulation of real-world experiences and introspective contemplation, the alteration of fictitious final aims occurs more gradually. As one gets older, it is common for absolute ideals to become more malleable and grounded in reality. The pursuit of perfect love may eventually morph into the pursuit of meaningful connections, in spite of the imperfections that are inherent in human nature. The pursuit of total safety may be transformed into the cultivation of resilience in the face of the unavoidable uncertainties that are a part of life. Despite the constraints, there is a possibility that the desire for entire competence will shift toward an appreciation of growth and contribution. The way you conceptualize death and mortality is also impacted by the fictional final aim you have set for yourself. Your goal should be to leave a legacy that will last for generations to come, and death is the final deadline for accomplishing this goal. If you have the objective of achieving complete comprehension, then you run the risk of passing away before you fully comprehend the significance of life. Mortality provides a sense of urgency to pack as much life as possible into a limited amount of time, especially if your objective requires comprehensive experience. An examination of your connection with death frequently reveals fundamental parts of the fictional end goal you have set for yourself. This paradoxical nature of fictional finalism resides in the fact that it is both necessary and impossible at the same time. Organizing goals is necessary because they provide both direction and significance. Nonetheless, devotion to ideals that are impossible to achieve results in pain. Making use of your fictitious end objectives as guides, while acknowledging that they are manufactured, is the solution. This requires holding your fictional final goals lightly. Living a purposeful life without succumbing to the tyranny of perfectionism is made possible by having a mature relationship with your ideals. The transformative power of Adlerian principles lies in their ability to translate intangible psychological notions into tangible instruments that may be utilized in everyday life. Up until the point where you actively put these realizations into practice, comprehension of your way of life, identification of your imagined ultimate objectives, and the cultivation of social interest are only cerebral exercises. When you begin to apply these concepts to improve your relationships, enhance your performance at work, and create a more purposeful living that is aligned with the welfare of the community, rather than merely providing for your own personal gain, you will begin to experience the true worth of individual psychology. This is the first opportunity for Adlerian application, which occurs during your morning regular schedule. The manner in which you start each day imparts insight into your way of living and establishes the tone for following interactions. Reviewing your goals and making a plan for optimal productivity could be a good place to start if your way of life places an emphasis on accomplishment. Instead, you might want to start by thinking about the ways in which you might contribute to the well-being of other people right now. When you adjust your focus from "what can I accomplish" to "how can I be useful," your approach to the activities and interactions that you engage in on a daily basis is profoundly altered. The dynamics of the workplace provide a fertile ground for the application of Adlerian concepts. When disagreements emerge with coworkers, it is in your best interest to explore them through the prism of differences in lifestyle, rather than making personal attacks. It's possible that your coworker, who is always correcting others, is operating from a lifestyle that demands perfection and control. Having an understanding of this pattern enables you to respond with empathy rather than annoyance. For example, by stating something like, "I appreciate your attention to detail while still keeping appropriate boundaries." Through the utilization of this strategy, possible disagreements are transformed into opportunities for mutual comprehension. The idea of encouraging someone rather than praising them completely transforms the way in which you interact with other people, especially youngsters. You should focus on effort and improvement rather than praising outcomes by saying things like "you are so smart" or "what a talented artist." Instead, you should say things like "you kept working even when it was difficult," or "your use of color has really developed." The purpose of this encouragement is not to create pressure to retain a better position. Rather, it is to boost true confidence that is founded on procedure. Make use of the same approach while talking to yourself, recognizing your efforts and development rather than seeking unattainable perfection. Through the application of Adlerian thinking, your perspective on errors and setbacks undergoes a significant transformation. Rather than perceiving mistakes as evidence of inferiority, it is important to acknowledge them as essential components of learning and overall development. You should fight the impulse to cover up your mistakes or place blame on others when you make a mistake at work. Instead, just recognize it in a matter-of-fact manner. Concentrate on making corrections and preventing future occurrences, and think about what the experience might teach you about how to improve procedures or systems. Taking this strategy indicates social interest since it places a higher priority on the collective benefit than on the protection of individual image. When seen through the lens of Adlerian theory, patterns of relationship become more conscious and changeable. You should investigate the ways in which your lifestyle may be contributing to the occurrence of partners who require rescue on a regular basis. Do you only feel valuable when you are required to do something? Are you attracted to equal partnerships because you feel that they pose a danger to your sense of dominance by providing assistance? A conscious choice is made possible via recognition. You have the option of either continuing the pattern or experimenting with relationships that are built on mutual strength and support for one another. There is a practical foundation for having a balanced life that is provided by the 3 life duties. On a regular basis, evaluate how interested you are in your work, your social interactions, and your intimacy. If you are successful in your work life but have difficulty maintaining friendships, you should make a conscious effort to spend time cultivating social connections. If your relationships take up the majority of your time and your work seems pointless, you should investigate the ways in which your profession could better represent your social interest. Achieving balance does not require devoting the same amount of time to each activity. Rather, it means engaging with all 3 in a manner that is commensurate with your individual circumstances and ideals. Parenting according to Adlerian ideals places an emphasis on natural consequences and working together to find solutions to problems. Instead of imposing arbitrary punishments or saving children from all obstacles, It is better to give them the opportunity to experience the consequences of their choices within the confines of a safe environment. It is preferable to involve youngsters in the process of seeking solutions that are mutually acceptable rather than dictating terms when problems develop. By taking this method, they are able to cultivate their social curiosity and problem-solving skills while also meeting the requirements for structure and guidance. By being more conscious of Adlerian lifestyle choices, you can improve your physical health. It is important to be aware of the ways in which your symptoms may interact with your lifestyle, such as headaches that occur before difficult presentations, back pain that becomes more severe during stressful relationship situations, or digestive troubles that occur during visits from relatives. While you are seeking the necessary medical care, you should also investigate the possible functions that these symptoms may serve. Are they able to provide reasonable explanations for the limitations? Are they able to elicit care that you found difficult to request directly? Even if understanding does not alter physical symptoms, it may lessen the psychological reinforcement that they continue to provide. Decisions regarding finances are a reflection of patterns of living and the development of social interests. Stress and debt are sure to follow if your way of life requires you to achieve superiority through the acquisition of worldly items. If it forces you to hoard resources in order to ensure your safety, you run the risk of missing out on opportunities to make important contributions. Take into consideration the ways in which the decisions you make about your finances could better serve both your personal stability and the benefit of the community. This may mean investing in a manner that is ethical, providing support to local businesses, or striking a balance between personal savings and charitable contributions. When Adlerian principles are taken into consideration, communication patterns undergo a transformation. Focus on having a true conversation and understanding with one another, rather than speaking in order to demonstrate your intelligence or to keep a certain distance. It is important to listen not only to answer, but also to genuinely comprehend the opinions of others. If you want to add to the overall understanding of the group, rather than to impress others, share your personal experiences. This strategy results in interactions that are more satisfying and connections that are stronger across the board in all aspects of life. There are new contexts in which Adlerian ideas can be applied, thanks to the digital age. The usage of social media frequently mirrors patterns of lifestyle, such as the pursuit of validation through likes, the maintenance of superiority through tailored presentations, or the avoidance of genuine connection through superficial interaction. Take into consideration the ways in which your actions on the internet could more effectively display your social interest by means of encouraging remarks, the dissemination of helpful information, or the use of platforms to organize communal benefit rather than merely promoting yourself. During the process of incorporating these practical applications into your day-to-day life, it is important to keep in mind that change happens gradually through persistent, modest actions, rather than by sudden changes. Every time you make a decision to take into account the well-being of others in addition to your own, every time you provide yourself or others a moment of encouragement, and every time you acknowledge the impact of your fictional ultimate aim, you are bringing about cumulative change. Individual psychology does not provide a quick fix, but rather a holistic approach to creating a life that is characterized by increased awareness, purpose, and connection. I am grateful that you have investigated the significant insights that Alfred Adler had into the nature and possibilities of humans. Remember that psychological wellness is not acquired in solitude, but rather through brave engagement with the problems that life presents and meaningful contribution to your community. This is something to keep in mind as you move forward. There are a number of decisions that are waiting for you each day, including the choice to live with social interest, the choice to strive for excellence that helps others, and the choice to embrace your imperfect humanity while continuing to improve. You should be aware of the possibility that the experiences you have had in your life, even the ones that have been difficult, have prepared you to contribute something valuable that only you can offer other people. While the world may not require your flawlessness, it does require your true engagement